It's good to be here at Netroots. Here to say that whether it is fighting HB 56 in Alabama, or it's fighting that anti-birth control bill they call personhood in Mississippi, or fighting for marriage equality, and it would have outlawed birth control too. Or fighting for marriage equality in North Carolina and across this country, the NAACP is committed to being a good ally. And I'm here to say thank you to all of you who spoke up for Troy Davis, who spoke out about the injustice in Georgia. Together we made the hashtag #TooMuchDoubt the #1 social issue tweeted in 2011. The second thing only to Beyonce's pregnancy. But because of that outreach, because of that engagement, because Russell Simmons was tweeting about it, and all y'all were tweeting about it, and even Kim Kardashian was tweeting about it, people in this country had to think about the death penalty. And you know what happened? Public support for the death penalty has fallen as a result to its lowest level since it was abolished in 1972. And as a result, we just abolished it several weeks ago in Connecticut. And if things go right this fall, we'll abolish it in California. And next year we'll do it in the great state of Maryland, where I live. What that means, y'all, is that we are actually within sight of abolishing it altogether in our country. We only got to get to 26 states, and we are at 17 now, headed towards 18, headed towards 19, and it's because of the activism of people in this room and everybody who listens to us outside of this room. Thank you. But if we had hoped that maybe we were in the early days of a post-racial nation, from Troy Davis to the hate crimes in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Trayvon Martin, we understand that we ain't there yet. I believe that day may come one day, but I fear it won't be any day too soon. Right now, we are rebuilding, if we're honest, a massive campaign to end racial profiling in this country. I say rebuilding because if you think back more than a decade, even George W. Bush was campaigning against racial profiling in 1999. Our children don't remember that. In fact, our children haven't even heard us talk really as a country about racial profiling until the past few months. And so we have to keep that conversation going, and we need all of you involved in it. We need all of us involved in it. If racial profiling could be ended by the NAACP, trust me, we would have done it a long time ago. It can be ended by this country, and we're an important part of it. But it's going to take all of us doing it. If you'll bear with me, I want to reflect a moment. I want to offer some reflections about what's been on my mind as we've been traveling from Trayvon Martin rally to Trayvon Martin rally across this country, waking up this nation and giving voice to a generation that has seen racial profiling go through the roof as they've grown up, and yet heard very little discussion of it. So you look at these young people, think about how they start their day each morning at school, reciting together, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I remind us of that pledge for 3 reasons. The first is that it is the simplest, most succinct statement of the social contract that binds us as a nation. It is literally the simplest representation of the collective aspirations of the progressive movement for generations in this country. And at the center of it is this notion of justice, with liberty, property rights, for all, democratic rights, justice, civil rights, right in the middle of that trilogy. Justice is the first purpose of our Constitution. Justice is the first ambition of the great revolution that gave birth to this country. I'm talking about the first Tea Party. Talking about Bunker Hill. Talking about the Boston Massacre that gave us our first Trayvon Martin, Crispus Attucks. Yeah, there was a time when the entire country was outraged about police brutality. But it was a long time ago. The third reason that I mentioned the pledge is because for our youngest children, like my daughter who's 6 years old, like we were decades ago, that pledge isn't just some secular prayer that they recite every day. It's actually where they think they live. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we have a duty as citizens, as patriots, as parents, it is to ensure that social contract is enforced. It is to ensure that our nation actually achieves its aspirations of being, as Frederick Douglass said over 100-something years ago in his screed against the Chinese Exclusion Act, the HB 56 of his day, that our destiny as a nation is to be the most perfect example of human unity that the world has ever seen. It is our duty, in other words, to build a nation that empowers our children towards their dreams more and more the older they get, and not one that reveals its own hypocrisy and breaks their hearts more and more the older they get. In cities like New York City, I want to talk about the Stop and Frisk program for a minute, and Mayor Bloomberg. In cities like New York City, literally children say that pledge in the morning: one nation, liberty and justice for all of us. And then they walk out the school door or even through their school hallway, and they are suspected and mistreated, thrown up against the wall, hands shoved in their pockets, sometimes sexually assaulted because of their color, not their character. Raise your hand if you remember the Amadou Diallo case. That year, we thought the New York City's notorious street crimes unit was out of control because NYPD did 80,000 stop and frisk that year, and about 90% of the people were people of color, and about 90% of the people were completely innocent, and way over 99% of them didn't even have a gun. And yet they were treated like they were criminals. And 100% of them felt humiliated. Most of those innocent people. And we said, wow, Giuliani's doing 80,000 of these. It's out of control. This year, Mayor Bloomberg is on pace to do 800,000. Last year, he did 685,000. How many guns did he get, this mayor who's so on fire? And he's right about stand your ground, but he's as right about that as he is wrong about stop and frisk. How many guns did he get for those 685,000 stops? 760. 760. How many hundreds of thousands of young people have had their self-image assaulted, their hearts broken, they've been pushed into depression because they were jacked up and treated like a criminal because of their color walking down the street? We will never know, but we do know that in New York City last year, there were more stop and frisks of black men between the ages of 14 and 24 than there are black boys and men between the ages of 14 and 24 in the entire city. The lie that he tells us again and again is that we have to do this because it makes us safer. He's very proud that New York City has lowered violent crime by 29% in the past 10 years. What he doesn't want you to know is that in that same period, without using this aggressive form of street-level racial profiling and targeting of young people because of their color, Los Angeles has lowered violent crime by 59%. New Orleans by 56%, Dallas by 49%, Columbia, South Carolina by 45%, and Baltimore by 37%. Which begs the question, Mayor Bloomberg, why aren't you doing what they're doing and focusing on fighting crime rather than jacking up our kids? Now, the danger of that argument is that it will lull some people into accepting the oppression of our young people, accepting a police state. And what the real Tea Party understood back in 1776 is that people who, oppressed people, as soon as they accept their own oppression, their oppression becomes permanent. What Jack Kemp understood when he and I were in Los Angeles over 10 years ago, dealing with the 10th anniversary of the riots after Rodney King, was that all these children who are being mistreated are all our children. We were standing in South LA. Yeah, that's right. And I offer Kemp because he was a Republican, and many people here, I understand, are not Republicans. But Jack was standing there and his shirt sleeves rolled up and he was on fire and he was talking about our kids, our kids, our kids. And this black woman standing next to me looked at him, looked at me, looked at him, looked at me, leaned over to me and said, he's not from here, is he? I said, no, ma'am, that's Jack Kemp. He once ran for president. That's maybe where you saw him. She said, no. I know who he is, but I mean, whose kids is he talking about? He ain't from South LA. And I said, ma'am, I understand what you're saying, but I think his point is that they are all our kids because we are all citizens of this country and we all have a responsibility to ensure they are treated with dignity and have a great future. And that's why I was so proud to stand with leaders in the LGBT community at the Stonewall Inn last week, with 35 LGBT organizations announced that they will be with us on Father's Day when we march to Mr. Bloomberg's house calling for an end to stop and frisk. And so I'm going to ask folks to get ready to stand up here for a second. I'm going to ask folks to stand up. Stand up if you have ever been racially profiled. Please join me in standing up because I've been racially profiled. Stand up if somebody you love, a friend, a child, has been racially profiled. Stand up if you're worried about somebody in your life being racially profiled. Look at these folks if you're not standing up and ask yourself, are you willing to stand up for them, with them, for their children? Please stand up. By standing together, standing up together against assaults on a woman's right to choose, against assaults on the LGBT community, against assaults on our environment, against assaults on workers' rights, and standing up together against the American original sin of racism and racial profiling and all the other lies that it spawns. That is the way that we will hasten the future together. That is the way that we will make a better America for all our children, because they are all our children. And that is how we will make this country finally and forever one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and God bless.